All right, next up on our tour of the cell is going to be the mitochondria. Nearly all eukaryotic cells and all plant, so meaning all plant, all algae, all animal cells, are going to contain the mitochondria. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It's going to be involved with cellular respiration. Cellular respiration is where oxygen goes in, carbon dioxide comes out, and we are producing energy, specifically breaking glucose down into ATP. So this is going to be providing the cell with energy through the breakdown of glucose to produce ATP. This is going to be much smaller than a chloroplast, and it's going to be found in all cells. So both animal and plant cells have the mitochondria. The numbers are going to vary with metabolic activities and energy requirements of the cells. So for example, liver cells can have as many as 1,000 of these mitochondria inside of their cells, just depending on what it is that they need. They are going to contain ribosomes and their own DNA. So mitochondria are a little bit self-sustaining. They can kind of help push their own processes along. They do have a double membrane found in this mitochondria. We have an outer membrane here and an inner membrane. The inner membrane is going to be folded back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. This is going to be what's known as cristae. Now, the important thing about the cristae is that cellular respiration is a complex process that happens in two locations. So cellular respiration, two-step process. Part of it is, multi-step process, but some of the processes are going to happen in the semi-fluid-like solution found inside this membrane known as the matrix. The matrix of the mitochondria is where one step of the cellular respiration happens. Another step, a very important step, happens on this cell, cristae happens on this inner membrane. So because this process is happening and it's going to be a constant back and forth between the jelly-like substance and the membrane, we want to have as much exposure of the membrane to the jelly-like situation as possible. So this is like going from talking about a Reese's peanut butter cup. Remember we talked about how a Reese's cup has chocolate on the outside and peanut butter on the inside, and the smaller it is, the more surface area to volume ratio. Okay, so that's one way to get surface area and volume to volume ratio. But what if instead of just making it smaller, you took peanut butter and chocolate and you layered them throughout the whole Reese's peanut butter cup? Think of it like a Kit Kat bar where there's wafers, but there's chocolate in between the layers of wafers. That is another way to improve the chocolate to peanut butter ratio. One way to improve the surface area to volume ratio is by having that membrane not just on the outside, but folded inside, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. That's how we can increase our surface area to volume ratio. So the mitochondria is a great place for this. We're going to find, if you remember from our discussion much earlier on, when we talked about prokaryotic versus eukaryotic cells, prokaryotic cells are very small. Very small. They have a very high plasma membrane surface area to volume ratio. Eukaryotic cells don't. They're much larger. So how do eukaryotic cells maintain efficiency? They do this by having specialized organelles that can carry out all of the necessary processes. They have a complex cytoskeletal system that is going to allow the movement of these organelles very, very quickly along these superhighways. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But they also have organelles that have other methods of increasing surface area to volume ratio. Prokaryotic cells just have to rely on enzymes to undergo the process of cellular respiration. We have specific, highly organized organelles that can carry out these functions for us. So like we said, the mitochondria is going to be responsible for cellular respiration. A singular form of mitochondria is a mitochondrion. I'm not going to quiz you on that, but I'm sharing that with you. So that is going to be the last of our organelles in this section. One other thing I would like to mention, we do not talk about, we are not talking about chloroplasts in this section because our primary focus in this chapter is going to be our primary focus is going to be the study of human cells. So we're focusing primarily on animal cells here. Animal cells do not contain chloroplasts. Take a moment if you know, and feel free to shout it out or share it with me. But what do chloroplasts do? What are they responsible for? And why don't we have them in animal cells? All right, that's all I have for this section. See you in a moment.